How's it going, everyone? This is eFlex and welcome back to another A Producer's Approach video. In this video we're going to be looking at Tut Tut Child's song Gravity featuring Isabel Higuero. So if you guys have not watched my videos in the past, I basically break this video down to 3 different sections. I have the intro backstory section, just giving like my personal backstory on the song. Then after that I have a breakdown and analysis section. And then after that I have an outro section, just kind of wrapping everything up. So with this song, Gravity by Tut Tut Child featuring Isabel Higuero, this song is definitely one of my favorites off the Impossible Things Before Breakfast EP from Tut Tut Child. Just some personal backstory. When I found this song, or first listened to the song in 2013, personally I'd never listened to melodic dubstep, but I was a huge fan of Tut Tut Child, so any song he made at this time I was really into. But I don't know if other artists at the time were making melodic dubstep, but this was the first time I really heard the influence of what melodic dubstep is similar to music today, kind of like from artists from Seven Lions and Millennium. This is the first time I really kind of heard it within that style. So in 2013, a lot of dubstep was similar to like the kind of Skrillex stuff back in the day, like with Bangarang and all that. But dubstep was starting to come into form, into being pretty good in its own right, and then melodic dubstep, from at least what I know, was starting to come into form from what I was listening to. So that definitely was an interesting thing to note at this time. But I mean, at the time, Tut Tut Child was one of my top 5 artists on the label, given the fact that, Fractal, AU5, and Vice Tone and various other artists were releasing like really good songs on Monstercat. So during this period of time, a lot of the Monstercat artists like I liked, and for me, a lot of them are considered like the OG really good artists. So this is like my first experience with melodic dubstep, and even though this song was released on Monstercat, the title song Eye of the Storm, I believe, was actually the song that got the video on Monstercat. This song is actually on Xkedo, and it's one of Xkedo's older songs, but an old song is a good song. So let's get into looking at Tut Tut Child's song Gravity featuring Isabel Higuero. Alright, so that was the intro section for Gravity, and right off the bat the song starts with the piano, which I really like. It just starts off with just a subtle piano, and then after that the piano transitions into the kind of an art bass with a little bit of the kind of drop bass, kind of in a higher pitch, kind of pulsating, and then the vocals from Isabel just come in, and you just have these kind of angelic vocals just right off the bat, which is probably one of my favorite things of this song, and which is one thing that stood out to me right when I remember I first heard this song, was how much of a different feel this was than other Tut Tut Child songs at the time, and how Tut Tut Child just started with the vocals straight out. Like it's not a vocal chop, it's just the vocal itself, just like in the intro of the song, which was really unique. And you kind of hear in this section as well with the pulsating bass, the bass arp on the bottom, and then you kind of have like a little melody playing on top, and then it transitions into the break section and build up per se, with kind of like a snare thing, and then the vocals still go from Isabel, and then you kind of have a synth on the bottom kind of playing the bass kind of chords, kind of pulsating with a lot of pads in the background, and then there's like a white noise transition into the build up. So the build up is pretty good because like there's a lot of the vocals in the build up, but the percussion itself is a clap, but it's not very prominent. It's more in the foreground. So there's a lot more attention to like the vocal and the other instruments more so than like the build up, as well as, you know, the traditional white noise build up sound. But I kind of like this build up just personally because it gives more emphasis to like the other sounds, like the vocal and other synths building up into the song. But it's a very calm build up before a very awesome drop. So you're about to see like the drop, and I probably will stop the drop a little bit more because I like to contrast the different elements within this drop. So let's get going. Alright, so that was the first part of the drop. So I really like this drop because it really contrasts the really hard, aggressive bass sound that Tut Tut Child had for a lot of his music with the kind of more angelic vocals from Isabel. There is like, you know, some other percussion sounds playing, a more traditional dubstep kind of halftime percussion rhythm. And then there's like an art playing in the background that I'll kind of get to later, but just the contrast between the vocals and the aggressive bass sound. So that bass sound is what originally drew me to a lot of Tut Tut Child's music, was just that really heavy, aggressive bass. I don't even know, it sounds like a electric guitar from a metal song just dropping like in a, you know, in an EDM song, but it's paired so nicely with Isabel's vocals that I had never even heard melodic dubstep quite like that at this time. So I was like, whoa, what is this? But just the contrast between the two is really nice. And then I like how the kind of ARP lead fills in when, you know, the vocals and the bass line kind of cut out. It kind of fills in, and then those two components come back to the song. And then right before the change into the more kind of acoustic sounding part, there's like a little mini lead that takes over the ARP, which is really cool. And then after that transitions into this kind of more acoustic almost sounding style break in the song, which is really cool. The song's still like a halftime rhythm, but it just sounds like, you know, a guitar or sitar playing the bass line, bass chords, and also the lead a little bit sounds like a pluckish, like a guitar or sitar. So the contrast between the two drops is really interesting. And then in this section as well, you kind of hear a hi-hat kind of come in with adding a lot more flow, and you'll kind of see that really present in this next part of the drop, which is really insane. So let's listen to that. All right, so You kind of heard that section of the drop. It's really more of the sound design wubby-ish part of the drop, but you notice how kind of how much weight there is to this drop. Like, you notice how the wubs, like Complextro, kind of fill in the end of phrases, and you really kind of get the full display of Tut Tut Child's sound design of sounds. Like, you can tell, like, those are his sounds. And just this whole drop section is really good, because this song is a little bit slower in like halftime. It's, I think, around the same BPM as regular dubstep, which is 140, but like it just feels so much slower that there's so much more weight to the drops and to the song. Like, there's just more, it seems like heavier, like more dramatic, heavier. I'm not exactly sure how to explain it, but you know, for me personally, I sometimes like faster music, but then this was the first time I really was like, whoa, I could feel like the weight and the drops, and just the flow is a little bit slower, but it's just like so much more emphasis on a lot of things because it's a little bit slower. So that's definitely really cool. So let's get into this second break section.
I feel lost, I feel like I'm losing control. This gravity's consumed us all. Waiting, wondering if our love was real, but the gravity keeps pulling me to you. Wasting moments, thoughts we left unspoken, hiding away every truth.
Alright, I want to stop it here because within this break section is very interesting. So it kind of starts off with the ARP after the drop, and then after that it kind of introduces the vocals, but they're like thinner sounding, along with the kind of ARP sound playing in the background. And then once the percussion comes in, the vocal is really more present and a lot fuller. So that's just like a nice technique there where, you know, the vocals kind of sound like they're a lot thinner and fading out, and then they come straight back in along with the percussion and along with that bass ARP. So that's a really cool effect to do within music that I just wanted to point out. And I'll stop this section, I think, before the drop, just to emphasize something in this build up.
Can't deny what I feel for you in this gravity. I know I shouldn't feel the way I do, but you keep pulling me to you.
Alright, so in this build up, it's a little bit interesting. So the vocals playing, I think, similarly to the beginning in the previous build up to the drop, but you notice how this time there's a little bit more of a percussion rhythm building up. It's a lot less prominent, so it sounds like it's like filtered or something, but you tell there's more than just kind of the clap in the background. Like, there's a little bit more activity with this drum percussion as well as the white noise building up. But so it's a little interesting thing, as we're going to see in the second drop here. So I just wanted to point that out for a little bit. right, so I'm going to stop it here for a little bit. So I just wanted to emphasize kind of the build up into the second drop. So it was a little bit interesting. So there was a little bit more percussion, as you guys noticed, and then there was like a lot more of a gap right when it drops, and then the kick just came in, and the kick was a little bit more prominent, a little more active in the beginning of the drop, which is interesting because in what I think I know the term is called, at least for me, I would call that more of like an off drop where like the kick is more prominent and then it kind of comes back into the halftime a little bit later. To me, that seems like a little bit like an off drop because some artists do that in certain songs where they kind of start the like the synths and stuff kind of come in, the drop starts, and then like the percussion kind of follows later. So there could be a better term for that, but for me, I call it like an off drop. And it's similar after, you know, that beginning part, but the kick is more prominent, so it's a little bit more active. And then after that, the kick becomes more of the traditional dubstep type style kick, similar to the first section of the first drop. And then this kind of acoustic part is similar to that first part of the first drop as well. So I just wanted to point out that section and what I thought was a little different. So we'll get back into the song. Alright, so that was the outro of the song, which was really interesting after that. So the second drop in itself is shorter than the first drop, doesn't have that kind of sound design wubby section, and the vocals aren't really present in the outro. It really emphasizes more of the synths, which is really nice because you've heard the vocal quite a bit throughout the whole song, so that section's like the first section where you don't have like the vocal really prominent, which I'm pretty cool with. If he wanted to play the vocal again, he could, but it's so present from the beginning to now that it's not really needed. A little more emphasis on the sounds is cool. And then in the outro, I like how he brought back the vocal, but like it almost sounds like it's filtered, almost coming through like a telephone, which is a really cool effect I think you could do with filtering or an EQ and make it sound a lot thinner, kind of like he did in the second break section. Almost sounds like it's being filtered thinner, sounds like it's coming through almost like a telephone in that regard, and he has the vocal playing, outroing out. So that is Tut Tut Child's song Gravity featuring Isabel Higuero. This song is insanely good. I was thinking off the top of my head, I think Hummingbird was probably one of the first kind of melodic dubstep styles of Tut Tut Child, but even that song was still a little heavier than this song Gravity. So overall, I mean, this song is just amazing. The vocals right off the bat are so angelic from Isabel Higuero, contrasted with his like really aggressive bass lines from Tut Tut Child, and all the switches between like that kind of sitar sound and the drop, and just the structuring of the song in general is really good. For, you know, my first real taste of melodic dubstep, I'm lucky enough to say that this was my first real taste. If you guys haven't listened to Tut Tut Child's music, I would recommend you listen to it. It's a lot more sound design. It's a lot harder, a lot of his other music, but I mean, it's really good. You'll really get a sense for what his music kind of was back in the past, and his kind of style and his kind of sound design. But if you want a slower song, Gravity definitely is a slower representation, but like a more heavy, dreamy, epic like feeling to melodic dubstep. So overall, I'm always a huge fan of this song. I always come back and listen to the song. Kind of reminds me of 2013 when I first listened to the song and all the great songs from this time period. So anyways, if you guys like the video, please like, subscribe, comment. Always helps me out. And this video is going to be a little bit longer because I want to explain a little bit more why I like Gravity, because this is definitely a song from one of my favorite artists, from Monstercat, from the time of 2013. And I don't know, Tut Tut Child, every song that came out from him, like I always listened to, immediately clicked. So this song is definitely a memory of the time where I was just always listening to Monstercat like 24/7 back in the day, and every release to me was pretty special. So hope you guys like the video, and check out Tut Tut Child's music if you haven't in the past or haven't already. So anyways, have a good one, everyone. Peace.